All right, let's talk about the new global arms race. But forget about nuclear bombs or stealth jets for a minute. This race is being fought silently, with lines of code and massive data sets. We're talking about the battle for artificial intelligence and the dawn of weapons that can think for themselves. Let's dive in.
You really don't have to look much further than this quote right here from Vladimir Putin to get a sense of the stakes. I mean, this just cuts right to the chase. It captures a fundamental truth of our time. Whoever masters artificial intelligence could very well dominate everything else, from the economy to the future battlefield. This isn't just a tech race. It's a race for global leadership, plain and simple.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll define what this new arms race actually is. Then, we'll get into the main event, the US versus China rivalry, before looking at some of the other major players. After that, we'll explore the mind-blowing tech that's changing warfare as we know it. And we'll wrap up by asking the biggest question of all: can any of this actually be controlled?
You know, we are living through a massive shift in military power, one that really started picking up speed around the mid-2010s. And this isn't just a slow, gradual change. Oh no, this is a full-blown revolution in how wars could be fought, and it's all centered on technology that can learn, adapt, and act all on its own.
At the absolute core of this whole thing are what's known as lethal autonomous weapons systems, or LAWS, and the definition here is, well, it's critical. These are not just your everyday advanced drones. We're talking about systems that are designed to make the decision to kill a human target without a person in the loop. The nicknames they've picked up: killer robots, slaughter bots. Yeah, they tell you everything you need to know about how deeply unsettling this technological leap really is.
So here's the crucial point to wrap your head around. Traditional military might, counting up tanks and ships, it still matters, of course, but the decisive edge, that's shifting. The new way to measure power is by the quality of your algorithms, the size of your datasets, and the sheer speed of your AI's decision-making. Having the best software is becoming the ultimate weapon. And that, of course, brings us to the main event. Because while a lot of countries are getting in on this, the competition between the United States and China is really the engine driving this whole arms race forward. Both superpowers are pouring unbelievable resources into getting an AI advantage, but they're going about it in very different ways.
If you want to see just how fast the old-school military landscape is changing, just look at this table on naval ships. In 2005, the U.S. Navy had a pretty comfortable 60-ship lead over China. Fast forward to 2013, and that gap had shrunk to just 2. 2! It's a stark illustration of China's absolutely massive investment in modernizing its military hardware in a crazy short amount of time.
But the hardware, the ships, that's only half the story. Look at this chart. It shows where top AI researchers are coming from, and in just 5 years, China's share of that talent pool more than doubled. This gets at their different strategies. China's state-led system can just pour resources and talent wherever the government points. The US, on the other hand, relies more on its amazing but less centralized private tech industry to innovate. The race for brainpower is every bit as intense as the race for battleships.
So what is China doing with all this new power? Well, a cornerstone of their strategy is something called anti-access/area denial, or A2/AD. The goal is actually pretty simple. Use a whole bunch of long-range missiles and sensors to create these giant keep-out zones. Basically, to make it way too risky for US forces, especially those big aircraft carriers, to get anywhere near China's coast. It's all about creating a defensive bubble.
Okay, so what's the American countermove? The US Navy is all in on a concept called Distributed Maritime Operations, or DMO. And the idea is pretty intuitive. If your enemy is trying to hit one big, valuable target, then don't be one big, valuable target. Instead of bunching everyone up around an aircraft carrier, DMO spreads ships, sensors, and weapons, including a lot of unmanned vessels, over a huge area, all linked together. It's a strategy designed to make the fleet harder to hit and much more lethal in a modern fight. Now, while the US and China definitely get the headlines, it's a huge mistake to think they're the only ones in this race. This is a truly global competition. Other major powers know that AI and autonomy are absolutely critical for their own national security.
You've got Russia, which has this incredibly ambitious goal of making almost a third of its combat power robotic by 2030. Then there's India, which has a dedicated AI defense task force focused on intelligence gathering. And of course, Israel has been a pioneer for years, developing systems like the Harpy drone, which is basically designed to go out and hunt for enemy radar all by itself.
Okay, now let's get into the really cool and kind of scary stuff. Let's zoom in on the actual weapons that are making this new era of warfare so radically different. We're not just talking about small upgrades here. These are revolutionary technologies that are completely rewriting the rulebook.
And some military experts argue that China has already put a weapon into the field that could fundamentally tip the balance of power at sea.
It's called the DF-21D, and it's an anti-ship ballistic missile. So what makes it such a big deal? It's the first of its kind. This thing can supposedly target and hit a moving aircraft carrier from over 900 miles away. You have to understand, for decades, U.S. aircraft carriers have been the symbol of American power projection, sailing pretty much wherever they wanted. This missile, the so-called carrier killer, is specifically designed to end that era. So how do you counter a threat like that? Well, the U.S. is going fast, like really, really fast. It's aggressively pursuing its own new class of ultra-high-speed weapons to try and reclaim the advantage.
We're talking about hypersonic weapons. These missiles scream along at more than 5 times the speed of sound. But it's not just about raw speed. What makes them so dangerous is that they can also maneuver in flight, which makes them incredibly difficult for any current defense system to track, let alone intercept. The plan is to stick these on the Navy's most advanced ships and subs to give them a brand new long-range punch.
But hey, why stop at 5 times the speed of sound when you can fight at the speed of light? That's right, directed energy weapons, lasers, what used to be pure science fiction are now actually being deployed. Check out Israel's Iron Beam system. It's amazing. First, its radar spots an incoming rocket or drone. But instead of firing an expensive missile back, it fires hundreds of laser beams. As soon as just one of those beams hits the target, all the other beams instantly lock on to that exact same spot, focusing an incredible amount of energy and just vaporizing the threat in midair. It's absolutely stunning technology. So, when you put it all together, these incredibly powerful, super fast, and increasingly autonomous technologies, it becomes pretty clear that humanity is standing at a major crossroads. Is this new path just going to lead to unstoppable escalation, or is there any way to put the brakes on and actually regulate this new kind of war? And this slide really lays out the two sides of the debate. On the one hand, you have a pretty big global movement, with heads of state and experts warning about the nightmare scenario of slaughter bots and pushing for a total ban. But on the other hand, you have cold, hard geopolitical reality. The major military powers, the US, Russia, the UK, they're against a ban. They argue the strategic advantage is just too important to give up, and besides, how could you ever really verify that a country isn't cheating on a treaty like that?
This quote from a Harvard report really frames the problem in a very pragmatic way. The experts here aren't saying AI in warfare is a good thing. They're saying it's an inevitable thing. And if you accept that a complete ban is probably a fantasy, then the only realistic path left is to focus on managing the technology, trying to create rules of the road and safeguards to prevent the absolute worst outcomes.
So the main takeaway here is this. This is not some far-off future problem. The age of autonomous warfare is already starting. The tech is getting better every single day, and the strategic competition between nations is just pouring fuel on the fire. And that leaves us with the ultimate question. We've created this incredible power, but do we have the wisdom to control it?